Good morning, my name is Kat Howard. I'm Head of Professional Learning at the Teaching School Hub. I'm an ECT lead, so any kind of support with the ECT programme, as well as MPQ lead. We're going to talk through this morning in terms of the reformed MPQ programmes and just give you an idea about what those new programmes look like in terms of the programme design and delivery, but also suitability and putting, kind of pointing colleagues in the right direction to ensure that they're on the programme that suits both their current needs, but also their intentions and aspirations for the future. I'll touch upon funding as well. You may have seen national announcements, but I'll just kind of clarify on that, and then we'll just talk through next steps and any support that you might need from the Teaching School Hub overall. So you may have seen the announcement made by the Department of Education on the 12th of October to announce that teachers and leaders employed in state-funded schools and state-funded organisations that offer 16 to 19 places in England will now be able to access a fully funded MPQ to support teachers and pupils following the disruption to learning faced as a result of COVID-19. One thing that I will mention, just as a little bit of a caveat to that, there is an MPQ for the first time as well available to non-teaching staff, which will also be fully funded if those non-teaching staff are in a state school, but I will kind of cover that as and when we get to that particular MPQ. So the reformed MPQ frameworks as such are available for teachers and leaders who want to develop their knowledge and skills in terms of school leadership, but also in terms of specialist areas of teaching practice. So you may have come across before the MPQSL, so MPQ in senior leadership, the MPQH, the MPQ in headship, and MPQEL, executive leadership. The frameworks for these, so the curriculum frameworks, have been completely reformed, and there's a sense of rigour to those new programmes in terms of their design that I'll just talk through in a little bit more detail shortly. But then also replacing the MPQ-ML. So the MPQ-ML is now obsolete, but I would argue that the replacement with the 3 new MPQs that, in terms of quite specialist areas of teaching practice, aren't necessarily a replacement of a like for like at all, and I'll talk through the specialist suite in a bit more detail, so you can see that with the MPQ-ML there may have been a tendency to feel that was quite generic. It didn't necessarily equip teachers or future leaders for pursuing pastoral elements of school practice or teaching and learning elements of school practice, and the move is definitely more in that direction with the specialist suite. Also helpful to mention, from autumn 2022, 2 further MPQs will be available, and I will mention those as well, just so that you can see the full offer that's going to be available as of September 22 to aid with your planning. Now, this is part of a national initiative to ensure that we have this golden thread of teacher development, and it's really to raise the profile and the calibre of professional development at the point, not just through initial teacher training, but at the point of induction, and providing a really robust induction process at a national level for teachers to aid retention over time before they're moving into specialist areas of development, and then perhaps in later point in their career, leadership development as well, to ensure that at every stage of a teacher's career they have the opportunity to access professional development. Now, the programme design itself of the reformed MPQs does very much move away from several aspects of the legacy MPQs. So the programme designs themselves are underpinned by a great deal of evidence, also audited by the EEF, and the content is approved by the EEF, and you'll see a great deal of the EEF content run through those programmes as well, to ensure that we are taking a best bets approach to evidence when we're viewing through the lens of a teacher or leader, when we're looking at real kind of situations in schools and challenges and how teachers and leaders might face those. But there's also an element of flexibility for colleagues, I think, that maybe didn't exist or wasn't as prevalent before. So, for example, we have our launch conferences in person. We feel it's really important that people get the opportunity to network and meet one another and build those collaborative relationships. But then the vast majority of the content that individuals will access from them will either be via an online platform, or for any facilitated sessions running from the Teaching School Hub, those will be carried out virtually, and they are all after school sessions. So it's a much more kind of manageable pursuit of professional development that can run alongside a full-time teacher or full-time school leader's role. There's also improvements that have been made to the assessment model. So if you have colleagues that completed a legacy MPQ and they may have had a kind of change project that they worked and wrote on this kind of project write-up over the period of the course, that's no longer in use. Instead, participants will access an open book case study assessment in the final few weeks of the programme. So there's very much this emphasis placed on getting to grips with the knowledge and thinking about how it's relevant for their role, rather than maybe being distracted by a substantial write-up of something over the course of the programme. Also important to note that with the MPQH, there is additional support for new head teachers if they're new in post. That resembles kind of school-to-school support, but also a coaching model that runs within that additional support as well. So just worth mentioning there. So we partnered with Ambition Institute in terms of delivery content. We're also working with expert colleagues both within the region and outside the region. We're working with Advantage schools and drawing on their expertise as a contrasting kind of context to our own, but we're also very mindful to be representative of the region. You may have seen our visiting fellow community start to build with our November cohorts, and we have several different experienced leaders and teachers delivering our content as part of that care that we want to give, that we're representative of the region, that we understand the region and the region's insights. The national programme that's coming through is absolutely fantastic to see, but we do very much understand that needs to be contextualised for Lincolnshire and what that looks like and what that means for schools in our region. So we are building that community of support, and we will continue to recruit for visiting fellowship over the course of as the MPQs continue to evolve, because we feel that that's really important, that those experts, that we're able to provide a platform and opportunity for people to hear from expert colleagues within the region and their own experiences. So if we make a start with the specialist suite of MPQs, you have the MPQ Leading Teacher Development, the MPQ Leading Teaching, and the MPQ Leading Behaviour and Culture. If we start with the MPQ LTD, Leading Teaching Development, this is for teachers who have or are aspiring to have responsibilities for leading the development of other teachers in their school. They may have responsibilities for the development of all teachers across a school, or specifically trainees or teachers who are early in their career. So in terms of suitability, this might be somebody that's overseeing teaching and learning across the school or across a particular phase. Or it might be your induction coordinators, those people taking care of mentors and ECTs. Or it might just be a teacher who's really interested in pursuing and understanding better the design, the delivery and evaluation of a professional development programme in-house. For the leading teaching, this is for teachers who have or are aspiring to have responsibilities for leading teaching in a subject, year group, key stage or phase. So this is really for teachers who really want to get to grips with what it means to be a subject leader or a phase leader or a key stage leader, or they might already be in that role. And the content of the programme is really designed to equip participants with what it means to be an expert teacher, so that they can then disseminate that within a particular team. I would say as well with that one that with all of the programs, that there's a secondary and a primary kind of switching lens through the case studies and the content that runs through those. So it's not necessarily just aimed at kind of subject leaders as such. With the leading behaviour and culture, this is the MPQ that's also available to non-teaching pastoral staff, and we can kind of support as to what the applications for that will look like. But it's, as I say, it's a really exciting time to be in a position to provide that to non-teaching pastoral staff in schools. The LBC is for teachers who have or are aspiring to have responsibilities for leading behaviour and or supporting pupil wellbeing in their school. I will say as well with the content of that programme, and it's also supporting staff wellbeing as well, so it does look through that lens. So this might be for your assistant head teacher, assistant heads of year, Senkos. A great deal of the content in there is quite applicable, and it looks at complex behaviour. But as I say, that is also available to non-teaching as well as teaching staff. So to look at the high level, the kind of programme journey that these programmes take participants through. As I said, with the LT, it very much looks at the aspects, the domains of knowledge that people will need in order to become expert teachers, to then be able to grow expert teachers within their team. With the LBC, it looks at aspects like enabling the conditions, so looking at how we inform effective behaviours for teaching and learning, but also around more complex needs. So looks at the SEND code of practice for a great deal of how we can make effective decisions around supporting students with complex needs. And then the LTD, as I say, will look at almost the various stages of what it means to plan, design, deliver and evaluate an effective professional development programme. Moving on to the leadership suite. The senior leadership, you've probably come across the MPQSL previously, for school leaders who are aspiring to be a senior leader with cross-school responsibilities. What I will say with both the senior leadership and the headship is that it's quite a robust programme. I think previously sometimes we had kind of middle leadership stage staff who would look at the SL as something to manage alongside their role, and that might be slightly more difficult. I would argue that if you are looking at the SL, we would really advise that and recommend that be an established middle leader that's been in that role and is quite comfortable with taking on the programme of the SL, because they're looking to shortly assume a role in senior leadership. And the same with headship. So for school leaders who are aspiring to be a head teacher or head of school with responsibility for leading a school, so this would be your deputy heads or really incredibly established assistant heads in there as well. Now, in terms of the curriculum itself, with the MPQ, SLH and EL, the curriculum programme itself is the same, so the same domains of knowledge are looked at, but the lens is different. So it takes participants through implementation, culture, teaching and behaviour, professional development, SEND, curriculum and assessment, working in partnership, organisational management, so your HR, finance, and also governance and accountability, so more operational side of school leadership. However, the lens that it looks through, as I say, will be through the lens of a senior leader or a head teacher, in order to provide case studies, scenarios, examples as to what that might look like at a different level. Now, the two new MPQs coming in autumn are MPQ in leading literacy, for teachers who have or are aspiring to have responsibility for leading literacy across the school, year group, key stage or phase, and the MPQ for early years leadership, which is incredibly exciting to have an MPQ in early years. And this is for leaders qualified to at least level 3 with a full and relevant qualification who are or are aspiring to be managers of private, voluntary, independent nurseries, head teachers of school-based or maintained nurseries, or childminders with leadership responsibilities. So just for your own forward planning, we don't actually have any further details on those at the moment, because the bid is yet to close for who will be tasked with kind of the design of those programmes. But once we have further information, we'll be able to provide that to you. In terms of next steps, you can apply via our website to secure places. So if you go to dretteachingschoolhub.co.uk/MPQ, all of the relevant MPQs are there with the information that I've shared with you this morning, as well as the application. And on the application forms themselves, there's just a link to send over to your head teacher in terms of endorsement. With the personal statement on the applications, we're really just interested in your role in school at the moment, where you intend to kind of take yourself over time, perhaps. and the direction that you want to head in, and really just making sure that this is, we're asking the right questions in terms of suitability. So just to give you a little bit of a signpost there. In terms of support and representation from the Teaching School Hub, we're more than happy to have, whether it be informal discussions with colleagues in schools that maybe haven't yet decided which MPQ is the right one for them, or it might be more formal representation, delivering to your staff bodies around the MPQs and just providing that open forum for questions as these programmes are in their infancy. We're more than happy to do that as well. But that's everything from me. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. I'm just going to open up and take any questions that we might have.